I'm
Wow.
working on them.
So that's like the first layer?
Oh, there are many layers. I've been on this for years. It used to be vertical, and I take it down. I take layers down with Murphy's oil soap and with strippers, paint strippers. And so I can find things underneath. I can see it fresh. And yeah, these are all things that have been this portrait's been in progress. What is the saying? It's being recorded. Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I've been on that one since 1987. This has
Wow.
been shown in different states. I've never been completely happy with it, and it's never sold.
What was the inspiration for that woman?
It was a girl a young woman at the school where I went at Otis Art Institute, and nobody's really known what's happened to her.
Well, keep going. Can you show us the art you're going to show?
Oh, that's hard. That's really hard. It's all packed up.
Oh, okay.
But you know.
What show us the one of your father sitting?
Well, let's see. Here's a big one I'm still not finished with. Well, this is a smaller one. This one will be in the show. Can you see it?
Yeah, just move the camera down a bit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
That's a smaller one. And
Yeah.
this is a bigger one that I'm still working on that I showed in an earlier state in 2015. And now it's in progress again since it was returned and radically changed. I don't know if you can, how much you can see of it.
Well, it looks like it's got depth to it. I mean, it's like a quarter of an inch thick or something in places.
Well, no, but it was very thick. I sand things down as well, and so I did sand a lot down. It was, to me, kind of unworkable. And so I sanded it and did all kinds of things. And I mean, all the paint you see is over the older paint, and the man is in a completely different position.
And do you apply the paint with like a spatula or a brush, or how do you apply the paint?
Both a brush and palette knife. Yeah. And my studio is really a mess because I just don't have that much room. I brought all these paintings came back, and so this looks like something out of Hoarders.
No, it doesn't. It just looks like you're productive. Do you do you have a hard time letting go of a painting when you sell it?
No.
But don't you think, oh, but I would like to do one more retouch or
Well,
whatever?
if they send it home unsold, unloved, that's the way I feel. Besides, I've known artists that have lost everything in studio fires, their life's work.
Oh my God.
I just know three.
My God.
Some were in Topanga Canyon. There were fires. I mean, and they were older people when it happened. And so I like the idea of them being spread out, and having homes. Besides, I need the bread.
Yeah, right. What Ruth's work is what's her approach?
Well, she works a long time too. It looks a lot different. But you'll see from the card, she's very involved with nature. Um, she paints plants and things, but they don't look like regular still lifes. It's she's kind of almost like a scientist, like a botanical illustrator, the way she'll go into the description of the plants in this very solid kind of way. So they have an eccentricity about them because they're but they don't have the kind of sentimentality you might associate with floral things. But she's just like that about nature, about animals,
And
and just very interested in those things.
do you have any of her work there in right there?
No, it's all downstairs. It's in her studio. I mean, I know she wouldn't, unless you want to hear her yell at me. I could take this down. Yeah.
Do you critique each other's work?
No, sometimes we're very discreet. You ask for things, but we're very careful. People have come in, my studio, and they've started just talking and talk. Some people have cost me like 3 years on it.
What do you mean?
Well, they've just said too much. They said, "You're not going to. This isn't finished, is it?" Oh, it's not, is it? Or don't touch that yellow. Or you're not leaving that yellow there, are you? And I mean, it's occurred to me already, should I leave that yellow that bright or should I not? And it's cost me time. And then usually there are other artists. I mean, they're very I know some real know-it-all people. They're teachers. I just don't take that approach with anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well,
so no, I don't like to have people in the studio.
uh, but do you ever go into Ruth's studio and say, "Oh, look at the shadowing on that. I love those colors," or
I will do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it won't be it'll be about it in its state. And she'll say things like that when she comes up. And but we know each other pretty well about things like that. That
yeah.
yeah.
So it sounds like part of the success of your marriage is you're tactful with each other.
I think it probably is. It has to do with that, about mutual support, about our
Mm,
artwork.
mm. It helps that you have the same interests, plus the dogs.
Yeah, I think it always has been. I think it is. I mean, if that weren't there, that would be bad news. I mean, I've known people with a very good friend of mine. She had been my student, and we just became friends and stayed friends. She was older than most. She was a grad student, and her husband, I don't, was just kind of very threatened by her work and kind of called it her selfish art hobby. Things like that, and that drives people away. I've known other people, like that. Usually women whose husbands
Mm,
are somehow threatened, but it's the best thing to be threatened about. It's a very private activity,
yeah,
you know.
right.
So I mean, it's I think very important, that kind of support.
What, Bill, you and your wife, what are your common interests? Maybe religion, children, grandchildren, how do you support each other?
Primarily grandchildren and boxer dogs.
And what?
Boxer dogs.
Oh, boxer dogs. Oh, how many do you have?
Two.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
But we have, other than that, our interests vary a lot. But those are the common ones.
Does she like to fly with you?
Not particularly. So, heights bother her, so
Yeah,
that's
me too.
not something that she will, and we have, but that's not her first choice.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, Avalon, according to Wikipedia, the population is 3,500.
Oh, you were right. Yeah, 3,500. Um, so, speaking of dogs, I think my dog I have to go open the door for her. You guys chat for a minute. Ouch.
John, are you near upstate, up the Hudson? Is it Pittsburgh or I know someone, I'm a limited partner in some apartments up the Hudson Valley somewhere.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I'm not, what called Hudson Valley, where I am.
yeah, you're near the Hudson River, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, very close. We're on the west side, just across the river from the town of Hudson. And I'd say we're probably 30 miles south of Albany.
Oh, 30 south of Albany. Okay.
Yeah, so we use that as the place where our doctors are.
And then how many miles north of Midtown would that be?
Of New York or
Yeah.
New Paltz, did you ask?
Pardon?
Did you ask about New Paltz or north of New York?
How many miles north from Midtown would your
Oh, of New York? Um, gosh, I don't know. It's more in time. I'd say it's like by a bus. It's and combination bus and car. It'd probably be 3 hours.
Oh, it is. Okay. So
Yeah, it was a long. When I was going down to teach once a week, it was the day. I left in the morning and I didn't get home until 2 in the morning.
Oh,
oh,
wow.
yeah,
Just to teach one class. But
yeah.
when COVID started, I started doing Zoom, which I really like. And I'm
So,
doing another class in Seattle, another Zoom class through it.
oh, is that right? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How
That's,
do you critique their work? They just put the camera on their canvas or something?
Yeah, everything is it's on the drawing, and I talk in the beginning and show a lot of artwork. I show, classic drawings and then the model appears like in one of the squares, that like now we have like three squares and then the they will draw from the model and it'll fill up the screen in 20-minute sessions. And while that's going on, there's a breakout room. Is that a common thing in Zoom? Breakout room where you
Yeah.
can go? So I'll go in breakout room and I'll go talk to each of them and I'll talk to them individually.
Oh, wow.
Usually for 15 minutes, but it usually runs over. So I mean so it's kind of more like a studio visit. So
So
so I
they
talk.
just keep their camera on their drawing pad or something.
Well,
So
yeah, or they can go on to Padlet and look, we can talk and Padlet can show up the drawing, or they hold it up so I can see how see its size, its physicality, and I talk to them, more individually than group crits. And I don't seem to have worked. And I did it in Seattle over the summer with landscape. And only instead of having a model that they'd look at in a room, they'd go out the door. They'd go out the door and work there. And then I could do breakout rooms while they're out there, or they'd make an appointment and they come back into where their computer is. It actually worked very well. I just have really good students. I mean, they're not beginners
Mm,
I'm not a good beginning teacher.
mm,
So
mm.
I've been doing it. I've been enjoying it.
That's one good thing that came out of COVID is we got used to Zooming.
Yeah. It's almost the only way I see people.
I teach a healing class every 2 weeks on Zoom, which is really fun. And I have a
Mm.
student in Louisiana and, one in San Diego. They're all over. It's really fun. I like it.
Hey,
Uh,
Bill, do you get a lot of people that go up in your plane that are really nervous?
If they are, they don't admit it.
Oh, they don't.
Uh,
I mean, they're not one of these freaked out. Like I can be if somebody else is driving a car. If I don't, I have to take a lorazepam if I'm going to be a passenger.
yeah.
I'm a terrible passenger. I really am. Look at
I mean, no, I offer flights, for charity. Take people up for an hour, and
mm,
they. I've never had any issue, and then I take to another flight organization, take little kids up to
hmm
give them an orientation. It's called Young Eagles. Uh, and the kids are the greatest. I mean, they love it, but I've never had anyone panic on me. But you certainly have to be aware of that because it has dual controls, and
Oh, Jesus.
uh, there are recorded incidents where someone panics and grabs the controls and freezes, and then it's very difficult to take over. So,
Oh,
yeah,
I never thought about that.
You might
yeah,
have to sock them,
yeah.
give them a needle of some, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll bet it. I mean, I've often wondered why I don't see more of landscape views, aerial landscape views coming up and painting. There have been some, because I mean, it's, when I've read, gone on a plane, I always try to sit by a window so I can look at it, look at the landscape from above. It's pretty amazing. I'm sure you must be very involved in it. I mean, the surroundings, what you're doing.
Uh, it's amazing when you're flying over metropolitan areas or just out in the country. It gives you a totally different perspective of,
Mhm.
of your surroundings and the fact that, there's just millions of people living in these little houses all over the country doing probably the same thing we're doing, but maybe in a different way. It just makes you think about how many people um, are in existence just in the local area. So,
Yeah.
what I think is so fun is flying over clouds and looking
Oh,
at
me too.
yeah.
that's fun. What's your most scary incident in a plane that you were flying, Bill? Like weather or whatever.
Well, in 2012, I was flying in the backcountry of Idaho with an instructor who sent us up a box canyon, um, and I had to land on treetops. Um, some people call it a crash. In the aviation world, we call it an off-airport landing. Luckily, the airplane made it all the way to the ground, but we were in a very, very remote area. And we had to be extracted by a Black Hawk helicopter where they send a crew member down on a wire and take you up. And uh, anyway, it was quite an ordeal.
But
But
Wow.
why did the plane have to land like that? What was
well, this instructor, uh, I used to go up every year and fly in the backcountry. It's like the closest thing uh, to flying in Alaska, which is a very rugged territory. Well, there's an area of Idaho that's very much like Alaska, and there's the outer strips that service ranchers and primarily ranching. It's all around the Salmon River, the various forks of the Salmon River in Idaho. And so I went up and took lessons in how to fly in the backcountry. It's a lot more technical than flying out in the open like this. Um, And so in 2012, I got the same instructor the third year in a row. We would leave at 6 in the morning, do 4 airstrips, and then just to check me out. And then I would spend maybe 2 or 3 days after that camping someplace. Anyway, we took off on the main fork of the Salmon River at about an elevation of 2,500 feet to go back to McCall, Idaho, which is at 5,000 feet, but you have to go over an 8,000-foot mountain. So typically I would just circle up over that airstrip in case I had an engine failure, you can down and land. But he said, I'll show you the shortcut. That's the way the professional pilots fly in the backcountry that deliver groceries and mail, things like that. So we were going up this canyon and we came to a Y and he said, you need to go to your left. And I said, okay, I'll go to the left. And then he said, no, he says, I think I'm too early. You got to go to your right.
Mm.
I went to the right and I'm below the canyon wall on my right, which is sheer granite. And I'm looking straight ahead and I see I cannot out climb the elevation gain. And it was pretty tight, too tight to really do an abrupt 180-degree turn. I looked to the left. Fortunately, there was a forest of 60, 70-foot pine trees. And what they do teach you in the backcountry, that if you're in a situation, you look for the greenest trees because they're the most flexible.
Hmm.
We only had 4 or 5 seconds, and I just told the instructor we're going for the treetops. He said, yeah. We hit the treetop, ripped up a wing. We got all the way to the bottom. The airplane was upside down at a 45-degree angle, which makes it very difficult to get out because all your weight is against the shoulder strap. Anyway, we got out. The airplane I have has side windows, and when you have a crash, the G-force activates a emergency warning device that goes up to a satellite. And my wife was the first to call on that. So the Air Force called her, said, do you know where your airplane is? She says, I don't know. My husband's in Idaho someplace. Where do you think he's getting it repaired? Because the emergency locator transmitter is active. And she said, I have no idea. And I said, I think it's in a very remote area surrounded by fires, which there were a lot of fires in the area. And we have to wait for the next satellite pass to get a more accurate position. So that was like 10 in the morning. And finally at around 5 in the afternoon, this helicopter shows up. Well, the first helicopter came from a hospital and they flew overhead and said, we don't see any landing area, even for a helicopter, within 5 miles. And they had to go back and get refuel. And they came back and said, we think that the Boise National Guard will come rescue you. And the doctor said, that's probably not going to happen. The prerequisite is either eye damage, compound fractures, or heart attack, and then they know we have none. So we had enough provisions and materials to spend the night. We were getting ready to do that. And then at 5 o'clock, without any warning, this Black Hawk helicopter shows up and the crewman comes down on this wire and picks up one at a time and takes us 5 miles away to a clearing where the hospital helicopter was and took me down to the emergency room and in the call and bashed me up and life went on.
And did you break anything? Any bones?
I had a lot of lacerations and I broke one small bone, but considering what could have happened, God was definitely with me that day, that's for sure.
What
Yeah.
about the other pilot?
He had a similar injury, nothing more serious than that. Since then, a lot of people have told me about similar incidents where people would get impaled by a branch coming through the windshield. Or you hit the ground and fire breaks out. We had no fire, so all around it was. But it didn't discourage me from flying.
Yeah, that was the question that was going to come up next. I wondered.
I went out and got another airplane, but the quid pro quo was from the family that no more backcountry flying, which I hated to give up. I'd go do it again today, but That was a fair bargain.
What was that? It was your plane that you were flying?
Yes,
Did you have, is there insurance on planes? I mean, like your insurance company bought you a new plane?
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
You insure it for a value, and they just write you a check for that value.
Oh, oh, good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It was definitely total.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, what a story. I don't think I've never been in an accident like that. John, have you ever been like facing death?
Well, I've been in some car accidents, and well, gosh, once my car went into a spin, and I don't remember the freeway going out to um towards West Covina, that area where I used to teach, and it was spinning around. I mean, I just talk quietly. Oh my gosh, they're going to kill me. Please don't kill me. And then this other car, but I mean, it was just like in this kind of shock. Um, I'm trying to think. I think there've been, I don't know. I've had trouble with street criminals.
What do you mean that like robbing you?
I've been robbed at gunpoint, because I sometimes had studios in this kind of nether places, where studios were affordable, so they were, dark at night and things like that. I was robbed at gunpoint. I was chased. Ruth and I were chased by some guy with some kind of a pipe, and then there were two other incidents like that. A lot of that had happened to me in different cities, and that was one of the reasons, I was interested in going out to the country more.
Yeah.
This was back in the 80s, and um, it changed me.
Made you more cautious.
Well, very cautious, and I mean, it's something I don't like. I feel weird about talking about, because let's say I'm more pro-police than most people that say they're Democrats. I'm very conservative on subjects of law and order and things. It was just that my life was kind of changed by a kind of cautiousness, and a kind of looking out. The first one, nobody really got very close to me after that first, the one with the gun. But now I can't run. I used to be able, the others all involved running or doing something, but I couldn't run now.
Hmm. I thought of an incident. I was in grad school at UC Santa Barbara and I'd walk on the beach every day. And I walked far and by myself. And I was walking on this deserted beach and I saw this young man come towards me. I thought, uh-oh, because it was very isolated. So I thought the best strategy would be to kind of walk back with him, and there was like a cave in the side of the beach, and he like grabbed me to put me in the cage in the
Mm,
cave. And I said, how would you like that if I did that to you? What do you think you're doing? So I gave
really?
him my best junior high teacher voice. No, 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 no. And he goes, oh. And he said he was sorry.
Wow.
So my teacher voice worked.
There were a couple of times when I was very nervous, and there was one time I went out into the middle of the road, and I can't do a woo woo anymore. You remember how Daffy Duck would woohoo, woohoo, woohoo? That split of his, and I'd do that. I did that.
To get away from a bad guy?
Well, acting goofy, just
Oh,
people are, hey, what? Hey, what? I mean, what a minute, what's that?
oh, to throw them off.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an idea.
Make them think you're crazier than they are.
Yeah, but yeah. I even saw that in a movie. I can't remember, Tom Berenger. was in it, and he did something about going in the middle of the street and doing this. If you're feeling unsure, do that. You're going to people will be put off. I mean, the guy that robbed me, they wanted me to come with them, and I just ran. I mean, I was just thinking while I was running, well, I'm not shot yet. Well, I'm not shot yet. But I mean, it just happens very fast. I'd rather take a chance running than be in the back, because they told me they wanted me to come with them, than to be in the back seat of a car
Oh,
with some
yes.
nervous teenager that doesn't know what to do.
No.
I mean, it's seconds, partial seconds, fragment of.
I thought of another one. I was driving with my young son in the back of the car, and we were going down the road, and perpendicular was like apartment complex, and a Chico police car came roaring out of the entrance to the apartment. I mean, crazy. So
Mm,
he came right at me, and my son was in the back seat of the car. So I saw him roaring out, and I turned the car and did a 180, well, no, I guess a 360. And then when I started focusing again, I was headed towards a telephone pole. So I had my eyes adjusted and I could switch. And so I stopped, he stopped, he goes, "Oh, lady, you're a good driver."
mm, mm,
And he said, "Do you want to write me up?" And I said, "No, the next time you want to give someone a ticket, just be lenient if it's fair."
mm,
Oh, and so, this is interesting. I was at a dance and I was driving back on the freeway, and the highway patrol stopped because I was going too fast. And so we opened the glove compartment. I'm looking for my driver's license. I put it someplace else. We're looking, I didn't have the right paperwork. And he could have written me up for speeding and not having my driver's license and everything there. And he let me off. And I said, "Officer, I want you to know that what goes around comes around." And I told him the story of the cop almost hitting me. So we all felt very happy.
mm. Wow.
Huh. Um, okay, so
I stopped drinking, well, the first time was after the 90s. No, wait, the 70s. And I was then introduced to a lot of fears that I'd been self-medicating.
oh, interesting.
I would not go in an airplane.
Oh,
I wouldn't go into an airplane. And I was afraid of doctor visits. I obsessed. I'd start, when they go into dark places looking for disease that's going, again, I was kind of like that a lot until I, found Prozac and things like that in the 90s that took that edge off my fears. But I just had a lot of things more like that maybe has kept me from doing physically. I mean, some people call them exciting. I mean, it's just the way I am. It's the way that psychologically I got this way, you know. So maybe my adventures are more, in the studio or things like that.
we're safe there.
When I hear people say, I went skiing,
Like Bill.
did somebody make you do that?
No, skiing is like you're flying, right, Bill? It's so exciting. It's like
Yeah,
having a
absolutely.
bird.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So do you like that? Do you crave adrenaline rushes from physical? Bill, do you from like physically, um, or in the world, dangerous things?
No, I'm very conservative in that regard. I don't go out of my way to face undue risk.
Yeah.
Just box canyons.
Yeah, well, I guess it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh, but there again, I had an instructor who was supposed to know what to do, But when I went to parachute school with the Army. A friend of mine, I looked up all the facts and figures and because that has a certain element of risk and evaluated it and figured if, if I kept level headed, I'd be fine.
Hmm.
And same every time you go flying, you evaluate risk. I don't take a lot of risks that other pilots might. So
Hmm.
risk mitigation, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the thrill for me of skiing isn't the risk, it's the movement. So it's the same reason I like dancing. It's the dance of the ski slope or the dance of the dance floor. It's not the risk.
And when you're skiing, you don't have to go fast, I think, to feel like you're having a good time. And you don't have to go down steep hills to feel like you're going a good time. So I think that the people with the adrenaline rush would go on what they call a triple black run that Gayle and I probably wouldn't even get near. So
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten on those by mistake and I just had to side slip down.
yeah, exactly.
Um, John, what are you hearing about the presidential race in New York? And what are you hearing?
Um, I don't know, just I look kind of on a daily basis at the iPhone and see things that come up and I'm kind of watching it from that point of view.
And what are you thinking, concluding?
Well, I kind of keep my mouth shut about. People have different views of things. I think people kind of get a view of the world kind of early. Like psychological things that might maybe my relationship to the dangers of the world, which
Mm,
people tell me are kind of extreme.
mm.
It must have, had to do with things from a long time ago. I think people view the world in different ways. I mean, it doesn't, I don't, it's like, well, I'm not going to like this person because they have these views, or I'm not going to like him because of that, or I'm attracted to people that have the same view of certain things than I have. Um,
They studies say that 50% of some personality characteristics like extroversion and introversion are genetic.
hmm,
So you have genetic predispositions, and then epigenetics shows us that it's an interplay with the environment. So it's both.
yeah,
So
I
you were
think
probably born fairly cautious.
I think my mother was like that. My grandfather was like that. My father was not,
Mm,
but I thought his judgment and behavior would tended to be rash anyway.
mm,
So I think that kind of made me think I was raised in a matriarchy anyway. Um, I mean that's what I think.
mm,
You know,
mm.
but I mean I survived my teenage. I'm 81. I've done things I've liked. I mean I've was able to do this, but it was really all almost. I was encouraged to do it.
Right.
I was encouraged by
That's the environmental piece
you
of it.
know. Um, I
What
don't know if that answers about the politics, but I'm kind of like that. I'm kind of.
what what amazes me is that it seems like Trump unconsciously doesn't want to win because he said a couple times, I don't need your vote. I already have enough. 20 to 60, 40 to 60% of Jews aren't going to vote for him, and they should, or else Israel will disappear in 2 years if they don't. He's alienated women who want reproductive choice, Venezuelan immigrants, mixed race people. People with cats, people without children. He just keeps on alienating people. So all I can think is he doesn't really want to win. Um, Any thoughts on that? Bill, you still feel like he's a better choice?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I would take exception to that. I think he's a very competitive person, and but he's a very outspoken person, a very opinionated person. So I think he does want to win, and I think he takes it very seriously. It's just that he could modify some of his uh, speaking points. But on the other side, you have the vice president who really doesn't comport very well in public interviews, that's for sure. Even MSNBC and CNN are being critical of how she handles herself in answering questions. And her whole life, she's been very, very, very much a leftist. And I think you're just going to get more of the same with her. And if you look at the past 4 years, that hasn't been very good for the economy. It hasn't been very good for democracy and wages. I mean, the whole thing it's been very sad to me. I think the country's just going in the wrong direction under the current environment.
In what ways have they undermined democracy? Because it seems like
Well,
Trump.
I think when you don't enforce borders, then you lose your sovereignty and you lose your nation. They have been very active in censorship to people who have an opinion different than theirs, and using Google and Facebook, the intelligence agencies, uh, committing lawfare against Trump. Trump will not lose any of these 5 lawsuits. I mean, that is, that's a South American tactic. You sue your opponent and try and put him in jail. And I don't think the Democrats felt that they would ever win any of these lawsuits, but they get bragging rights that he's been sued by them, and he'll win all of them.
Well, he's lost all the ones so far.
He'll get it on appeal. Yeah. You get outside of the New York court system, you get a much more measured. Already, the appellate on Letitia James thing was held yesterday, and the judges are indicating this is a horrible lawsuit, and that they would probably, find in his favor. So, yeah, I think you see too many things given the current administration with too much spending created inflation. Groceries are up 20-30%. Inflation under Trump is at 1.2%. Under Biden, they got up to 9%. They're down to maybe 2.5%. But everything is more expensive. Wages aren't going up, so everyone, unless they've had a dramatic increase in their income, is actually worse off now than they were 4 years ago. In real wages, they've lost some think 4,000 or 5,000 for the average earner per year. So I think Trump has a much better plan for the economy. He's much better at the foreign affairs. You look at Harris is very anti-Israel, even though she's married to a Jewish man. You couldn't do much worse than she and Biden have done, I think, trying to claim that Israel should back off from whether it be Lebanon or Gaza. They don't say that to the Ukrainians. They don't ask the Ukrainians to do a ceasefire. They just removed intelligence services from Israel, but they give it to Ukraine. And most of the people in Harris's circle of advisors are very anti-Israel. And, that's not a good position for us to be in. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on.
Bill, do you think we're in a very dangerous time regarding a third world war?
I do. I think because we starting with the Afghanistan withdrawal, we exposed our weakness, the weakness in our leaders to take a strong position. And I think that's why Trump was successful by not having any conflicts, because he was a strong leader. And one of his characteristics, the other leaders in the other countries couldn't always figure out what he was going to do. So that made him very cautious. And with Biden, he's encouraged, he's given the Iranians $80 billion since he's been in office. And what do? They spend that money and give it to Gaza and Hezbollah. And then we try to tell Israel not to be, not to fight too hard, not defend yourself too much. I mean, it's just weak leadership, I think, has created the situation that we're in now.
John, do you think we're facing a world war?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel it. I sense it. I kind of have a sense of it. I don't know if you'd call it thought. I mean, with ideas or that I could, but I kind of sense it, and I'm very concerned about it. I don't, I've sort of lived my life away from it. I knew from the age of 10 I wasn't going to be a soldier. And so I've taken that kind of position. It seemed, but then I have thought questions. I mean, maybe we are really a terrible beast. And maybe we have to be very aggressive about other tribes. Maybe we have to. Maybe my feelings are an indulgent. Maybe I'm something that what a powerful or an effete country can afford to have. You can afford to have people like me, but I don't know. I wonder about it. How far are we from, people bashing each other's heads with rocks and things, and that they're going to bash your head with a rock if you're not stronger than they are or as strong. I mean, I really can't, I feel I'm in the middle in a lot of things. I'm not a solid
pacifist
party line person. I'm not, and I don't. I mean, I think a lot about environment. I've experienced we went through some very difficult times during my childhood about money, and I, for a period, it was a short period, but I know what it's like, and I when I hear social issues that, well, people aren't going to have heat. Well, some people are going to be homeless. Well, there's going to be roadkill about this. I can't help feeling that the government has to deal with it. I guess I think I mean, maybe Bill feels it too, that it has to do with his experience, who he's been as a person, what he's seen, I mean, I'm trying to be really honest about it. I mean, about where I really am. I mean, the kid I didn't participate in sports. I mean, things frightened me, and I've learned. I kind of learned to live my life. I kind of a clown persona by the fourth grade, and so I don't know if I can talk about things in terms of, well, these are facts, just to place other facts against facts that someone is given me. I mean, I hope I'm contributing something. I mean,
So you're saying we're all are subjective in our viewpoints. You know, we're
Well,
not.
I know I certainly am, but I can't really speak for someone else or how people are very objective. Some people I think, are probably more objective than I am. I don't want to pretend I'm being objective.
Mm.
That I mean, I don't know what more to say.
Mm.
I'm, you know,
Well, scientists know that we're really subjective in terms of what we see and don't see and hear and don't hear. Ask anyone who reports a crime. People will have totally different descriptions of the criminal or the scene or whatever. And what were you going to say, Bill?
I say it's a conundrum.
Human nature.
yeah.
There's so many issues, you really have to, I think, be a student of it to really kind of wade through all the different opinions, and a lot of opinions that have no factual basis whatsoever. There's a lot of emotion involved in many of these opinions. Uh, it's not easy to discern properly what the truth is in a lot of these cases.
Yeah.
I
didn't hear the last line, Bill. I didn't hear.
I think politicians usually have how should we say it? An opinion that may or may not be based upon objective truth, and a lot of it's ideology, and I think that you really have to understand who the person is when they express their opinion, and it's not always evident, especially with politicians, because they're trying to appeal to their base for many, for a lot of cases. Anyway, I'm just to be a casual observer of politics is probably it's got to be very confusing, and I think people just throw their arms up and say, "Well, I like the way she looks, or I like the way he talks, or he walks, so I'll vote for them."
Mm.
I mean, I think of a lot of opinions or voting opinions are made on that basis.
Mm.
You mean like if you think Kamala Harris is cute?
Yeah, I mean, some people.
I've been reprimanded for saying that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Trump
some
said
people.
he's better looking than her. He says, I'm much better looking.
Yeah, some people will vote for her just because of her joy, quote unquote, because she laughs a lot, and other people will vote against her because she laughs a lot.
You're right. Human beings are subjective, not objective, and we can be really violent and bash each other's heads with sophisticated weaponry.
Well, how do you answer that question? Is man a rational or an irrational being?
Irrational.
Well,
you just look at history, which is about wars, and that's irrational. It's irrational to be so sophisticated technologically, and what is it? 13% of the people in the world live in poverty. 1 in 5 kids in the US is hungry. I mean, it's crazy that we have so much wealth and so much suffering. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Oh, Bill and I.
Surely, of course I do. I mean, yeah. I don't understand. It's that war is always brought up. Well, this is the way it has to be. This is the way it's going to be solved, and it totally baffles me.
Because it's irrational.
I mean, I can't say this is the reason or it's their fault. I mean, I've been able to be alone in a room a lot. It took me a long time. I mean, after I taught graduate school and things like that, that it was a strength I had. I don't think a lot of people would want to do that, but it was just, I wouldn't have thought it was, well, this is a strength I have. I mean, as I've watched people drop out or of doing this kind of activity. Um, I
There's when I came back from Vietnam, you try and make sense out of it because one day I'm out in the middle of a nowhere, living below ground, and 3 days later I'm in the San Francisco airport after a year being in Vietnam. So I read a book called Territorial Imperative, and it's about the study of animals and how they mark their territory, and birds of singing, and bears of whatever. But the whole basis for the book was that territory is the primary driver of conflict. And so what applies to animals also applies to humans. And if you go back in history, just look at all the battles that are mentioned in the Bible. I mean, it's basically all about territory. It wasn't about religion so much as territory. And then personalities. The other one I read was The Best and the Brightest, Halberstein. He talks about how we got into the Vietnam War and how, if I remember correctly, how was Lyndon Johnson. It was, my stick is bigger than your stick, and I'll show you who's boss. And that's what really got us into the Vietnam War. So even though we'd been there for years, starting with Eisenhower as advisors, it was really Johnson's ego that probably got us to where we were.
Johnson's ego?
Yeah.
You think?
He had a huge.
Let me add a book to Bill's. It's called Chimpanzee Politics by France de Waal, and it's a study of the politics of chimps. And it really helped me in being at Chico State. The same kind of maneuvers the chimps make, the faculty and administration would make. So that really helped me. We act like chimps. We just got.
Was it about territory?
It was about dominance, hierarchy, establishing power and control in the hierarchy. So you could have a dominant alpha male, but he wasn't the strongest because he had a coalition he built, and he would do favors for each other, and they would puff up and look bigger. So I always think of men with shoulder pads and penis pointer ties, corner offices. There's all kinds of symbols of power, prestige. I'm bigger. And it was exactly like the chimps.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
good.
the question comes down to is what ought one to do? And they said, well, we're telling you, you're going to go over and you're going to put yourself in this position of jeopardy. And I say, well, I've prepared myself to do this other work. Is it wrong for me to say no, or is it subjective? What is a person to do with all of this? I mean, is it for us to do and die, not to reason why? Is that what we should be doing as a person?
That's a good question, John.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think we've engaged in wars that we probably should have never been involved with, and Vietnam was probably one of them. So I think some people take the attitude that, hey, I'm a U.S. citizen, the U.S. is involved in this conflict, and as a citizen of the U.S. to protect our interests, if I'm asked to go, I should go. I think that's one attitude. And then I think the other attitude is like, you know what, I just don't believe in that, and I'm going to Canada. And that certainly is a alternative that
or be a CO and do medic work or something.
Yeah. There's other ways to make your contribution, I guess. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
All right, my dears, very interesting. Thank you too for
Yeah.
It was interesting. I liked it. Yeah.
See you in October.
All right. Thanks. You have a good one.
Bye, Bill.